Welcome to our live training today on PlexTrac 218. So this is our most recent release that came out, 2 weeks ago now, for cloud users and on-prem users. And just as a reminder, this is our customer live training series where we're bringing you the information that you need to get the most out of PlexTrac. We bring in our PlexTrac experts, or as I like to say, our Plexperts, and show off all sorts of really fun, cool things about PlexTrac and what we're doing over here. If you have ideas for content you'd like to see, or you feel something is missing from these webinars, whatever, or you just want to tell your account manager how much you love our live training series, please feel free to reach out to them and let them know. There's also a survey that will pop up at the end of this training that you can provide some feedback in as well. The last few weeks, we have talked about templates and layouts, just using those in PlexTrac. We've done a reporting 101 and scoping and scheduling. And coming up next week, we're going to talk about custom roles and permissions, which is a really exciting topic if you're looking at bringing your customers into PlexTrac or setting up specific roles for your internal users based on what they need to do in PlexTrac. And then we'll be talking about assessments and content library things to round out July. And today it is me, Tammy Brannon. I am the enablement specialist here at PlexTrac. And then we also have with us Sarah Foley, who is our VP of products. So it's an exciting time to have Sarah join us and talk about what we've done so far on PlexTrac.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. I'm super happy to be here with all of you and always super excited to talk about what we are doing at PlexTrac for sure. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so hopefully you can see the agenda that we have for today. So as Tammy said, we are going to talk about what's released in our 218 release. So we'll go through the release notes, a new feature called job queuing. We'll talk about some updates to our workflow automation engine, as well as a new service account that was recently created. We'll talk about asset management that's coming out and now available for GA. And then I'll give you a peek into some findings that will be shortly coming out after we release assets. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So just a reminder that the release notes are always available on the Help Center. So at PlexTrac here, we release monthly. Obviously, all of our releases consist of a mix of feature improvements as well as bug fixes. And Tammy makes an amazing release review video for each release here. So that's at the helpcenter.plextrac.com, and you can navigate to the release notes. And here, I'll just show you that right here. I'm in the Help Center. You can easily see that I'm in the release notes. Here is our 218 version. You can see what we did, and then of course launch Tammy's awesome video to walk you through that. So that is the Help Center. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about today is really a quality of life improvement if you're a PlexTrac user. And this is around our job queuing functionality, or, around the file import functionality. So today you can upload, previously you could upload one file at a time into PlexTrac that would load the findings and associated assets, and then you could start to upload a secondary file or third file into the platform. And, while that could be tedious and time consuming, that's why we really introduced this job queuing feature here. So this will allow you to upload multiple files into your report. You can upload around 10 or 11 files simultaneously, depending on the size. You can upload these from different sources, as it says, and then you'll track the progress of these file uploads at the report level. And then there's a new icon in the product that can actually show you the recent imports and your import history. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to go ahead and just pop over into the product and show you an example of what that might look like, as well as the icon up at the top of the product. So here I am in a report. I've just created a brand new report. This is my July pen test, and I do not yet have any findings in it. So this is a completely empty shell of a report. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go navigate to the Add Findings button over here in the top right, and I'll do a file import. So here you can see that you can now drag and drop your files into this space here. So I'll browse and select about 5 or 6 files or so here and start uploading them. So you can see now that all of these files are beginning to upload and populate their source if possible. Otherwise, you can come in here and update any sources here for the import. So I'll just quickly do that here with Veracode and lastly Pentera. So now I'm uploading these 6 files. I'll go ahead and hit continue. No tags or for assets or findings today. We'll go ahead and skip that piece. And then we'll go ahead and import this. So that was actually very quick. Those all imported very quickly. And now you'll see this new icon here up at the top right for file imports. And you can click on this and then get a view of the recent file imports that are going on. You can actually see one of them is still continuing to upload. So once those are completed, I'll start seeing all of those findings populating into my report, and then I can start working with that. So here they're all coming in, about 196 or so have come in now, and you can manage that right here through the file import button as well. So really a quality of life, time saving enhancement. This is available to all levels of the platform, and hopefully you'll get some use out of this starting, hopefully even today.
Yeah, or if you haven't already. I
Yeah.
know when I was trying to show this on the video, it kept moving too fast. Like it was so fast I couldn't capture it. I had to put a very large file in to slow it down enough to be like, look, you can watch it come in. So it's a huge quality of life improvement over how it used to be for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff there.
Yeah.
And again, that's for multiple file sources, different file types, things like that. So awesome. So that is our job queuing functionality. And next, something I'm really excited to talk about is our workflow automation engine. So this is now available for GA. We did launch this to our cloud-hosted customers a release or so back, but this is now fully available for both our cloud-hosted and on-prem customers. So we're very excited about this. Speaking of, efficiency and time savings, with the file import, that's really what the workflow automation engine is about, right? This really allows you to build those automated workflows that speed up the actions, productivity, save you time, right? This eliminates the work that you may perform from those manual tasks. So what exactly is a workflow? So a workflow really allows you to create conditional logic, as it says here, with triggers and actions. So I like to think of our workflow automation engine as kind of a if this, then that type of capability that you can set up. So this is great because you can cater this differently to different clients or departments within your platform and really, get creative with those rules that you are creating.
Mm-hmm.
These also have activity logs and run history. I'll pop in and show you all of the great things with the workflow automation engine. And, we'll continue bringing new enhancements out with every release to our workflow automation tool. So we recently just added webhooks. So if you aren't familiar with webhooks, those were brought to our platform around the November, December timeframe. And now we've incorporated the webhooks into the workflow engine, which is really cool. So I'll show you guys that. In addition, we've also added support for custom fields in the rule logic or the conditions. So you now can key off any of those custom fields in your reports. And then we also enhance some of the sorting from that editing view. So this really gives you a lot of power to say, if this thing happens in PlexTrac, then perform this action. And you can see over here, this will incorporate some of your PlexTrac variables as well. So let's kind of jump over here and actually look at that workflow automation engine. So you can find the workflow automation engine under the account admin panel. So you'll see under automations that you'll now have a workflow automation button. This is a feature for our premium bundle. So if you are looking in your administrative console right now and you're not seeing workflow automations, feel free to reach out to your account manager and we can help get you sorted here. So I'll go into our workflow automations now, and right now I'm in our workflow automation dashboard. So you can see I have a number of workflow automations created. These are for various different departments or clients, depending on how you have PlexTrac set up. And you can see that I have some of these rules enabled and some of these set up and ready to go, but maybe I'm just testing those now. So let's actually go into the first workflow here on the dashboard and kind of take a peek at what this gives you. So I'm going to come into the workflow itself, and you can see again that we have a trigger and a set of actions. So you can have multiple actions for any of your triggers. So in this example here, we're saying when a report finding is created or edited and it's informational, and the report status has been published, right? So there's a couple conditions that we're talking about here. When you look over here to the right side, you can see the settings where you can set up these type of rules. So again, in this example, we're saying if the severity is only an informational and the report status has been published, then perform a set of actions. So in this example, we're going to actually just change this to closed and create a substatus of informational. So as soon as those come in, meeting those conditions of informational or the report status published, we'll go ahead and change the status of that finding to closed with the substatus of informational, and we'll also fire off a webhook. So you can see each of these settings as I click on the section for that action or for that trigger. So in this example, you can say, we're saying, let's make a new webhook. We'll send this to Slack. You know, this is the channel that will send it to you. And we'll say, you know, closed informational findings when this event happens. So this is a very simple workflow, but gives you an idea of some of the power of our automation engine, just, you know, based on a status of a finding, then, you know, perform a set of actions.
Do this thing. Is there a way, Sarah, I'm seeing the add variable option over in that Slack webhook message over on the very right-hand side.
Go back there. Sorry about that.
Is there a way to give more information using that Slack variable?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Great
Okay.
question, Tammy. So you can also add any variables here right into that webhook, and you could say something like, you know, the
client
finding
name or
title.
yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So that will give them a little more information on that, you know, rather than just an informational was closed. It
Just
could
like,
give you
hey, we
that
closed some
finding title.
informationals.
Exactly,
Awesome.
exactly. So you can use any of these variables within the workflow automation. That's a great call out, Tammy. Thank you. To really cater to that message that you're sending out.
Which really helped kind of build out our notification system, because not only can you now send an email that way, but you can send a webhook that way, and you can send Slack and whatever you need to use to notify people. As we know, everyone checks different things, so you can send all
They
the
do.
notifications to
Everybody
all the
uses
places.
so many tools. So we want to make
Yeah.
sure we support you in all ways. So we'll just take another peek here at another webhook. You can see when I open, or excuse me, workflow. I have webhook on the brain. You can see when I open this workflow that it actually shows me an activity log. And this is something that I wanted to highlight as well. So all of our new features, we'll talk about assets here in a minute, and this will have an activity log as well. But the workflow engine has an activity log really to show you all of the actions and who performed those actions for a specific workflow itself. So you can come in here and see who created the trigger, who's modified the trigger, things like that. We also have a run history here that will show you any of the times that this one has been run. Let me actually pick a enabled one here. Oh, no running, but you normally you would see the run history of every time that this workflow has executed. You can also come in here and edit these. So this is another example that I wanted to show you just to give you guys an idea of some of the breadth that you can do of actions that you can take with this workflow automation. So this one's pretty cool, right? It actually has 5 actions here. And again, you can perform multiple actions off of a trigger. So in this example, and this is the thing I love about the workflow automation engine, is that it's very no code. It's easy to use. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to go to GitHub and check things in, check things out. This is very simple, very reading like for you to understand. So this one here is, yeah, when a report finding is created, and the asset tag has a critical, so you can obviously tag assets or findings. So we have, the severity is critical or high on the finding and the tag is critical. Then we'll change the status to open. We'll make a substatus of needs immediate triage. So this immediately needs to be handled because this is critical on all accounts, right? Both the finding and the asset. We can also send an email to any email address. And the thing that's really cool about the emails that I want to talk about here is you can do a list of emails. So you can just type in a set of emails. You can also send it to any users within PlexTrac or any roles. So you could say any administrators, go ahead and send this, or any standard users, send this email out. But the cool thing with the list of emails is this now allows you within PlexTrac to start sending email notifications out to users that might not be within PlexTrac. So before, when you wanted to do email notifications, these did need to be PlexTrac users. Now, of course, you can still send to users right here, but you can also send to a list of emails or an alias, perhaps, if you do want someone to be notified of something happening. One of our customers, a great example of this is, they'll actually send a webhook as well as some email notifications when a report is published. And then they'll actually use our robust API to come pull that report and put it into their customer portal. Now, of course, you can use PlexTrac as your customer portal, but if you do already have a customer portal like this customer did, they use that webhook to be notified, the API to pull it over. So really, still utilizing those webhooks and workflow engine to save them time, even though they weren't having the customers come into this portal. So again, this is a very detailed webhook. You can also create a JIRA ticket, and I'll show you that as well. You can assign the finding to a user, as well as send off that webhook. So a lot of functionality and a lot of power within this workflow automation. So let's actually create a new workflow. I can come to this plus sign right here and create a new workflow right from the editing screen, or I can go back to the workflow dashboard and create a new workflow from here. So I'll go ahead and do that. So again, in my example of PlexTrac today, I've renamed our client module to departments. You can, of course, white label this to meet your needs. But the first thing that it's going to ask you when you create a workflow, and this should be similar to, the majority of our features that we're launching, is, which client or department should this apply to? So you could apply this to your entire tenancy and say this will apply to all of the departments, or you can say, actually, this is only for a specific department, the Department of Communications. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and configure that workflow. So then you can see that I have the trigger options here as well. We will be adding, like I said before, more triggers. So we'll be adding report statuses into the trigger options, as well as assets and, bringing those in as well. But in this example, I'll just say when a report finding is created or edited, and then you'll see that the right-hand side will change. And even though this sounds like a very simple trigger, if you guys remember from the first example, you can create rules. So you could say any field associated to that finding. So again, I could say, severity being critical, or maybe I'm adding a condition of a CVSS4 scoring mechanism, so maybe I'm saying if that's greater than or equal to 8, then, perform a condition. You can then come up and add any of our corresponding actions here. So you could decide you wanted to create a JIRA issue here, right? And then you could pick which JIRA project that you're using or that's hooked up for that department. So here I'll pick, Department of Communication, and then you can pick, more detail here, as well as picking the type of project that will go to, as well as would that be a task, epic, story, whatever you have configured in your JIRA instance. So that's really easy to set up, and that gives you an automated way to say, really work on that prioritized remediation when things are coming in or when certain conditions are met. Go ahead and send that off to JIRA, and we'll be bringing in support soon for our ServiceNow ticketing systems as well.
Oh, great.
So yeah, this is really exciting stuff to me. Again, this is really powerful and easy to use. So I'm a huge fan of our workflow automation engine, Tammy.
I am too. It's probably one of my most favorite features that we've launched in the last few years. It really does take that time savings and give it back to our customers.
Yeah.
We had somebody comment when we were showing them, "Oh, you're just trying to get rid of my job." No, we're trying to take away the boring clicky button tasks that you have to do all the time so that you can spend time doing what matters. That is part of our mission statement, is fighting those
Exactly.
security battles that matter, and changing
And it can
all of
be our
your
secret.
informational, yeah, and it can be our secret. Changing all of your informational findings to closed manually is a pain. So bringing this in here, that saves you time every month. You don't even have to look at those. You just keep them as a record, right? So that's been something
Absolutely.
a lot of customers have set up that specific workflow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yes, we won't take your job. We'll just make you more efficient
Yeah.
in the day so that you have more time for strategy or, other
Yeah.
important
Working through
tasks.
recommendations and doing research about security
Exactly.
breaches and all of the things that you need to do in your job that keep getting put to the side because you're sitting here doing manual work in PlexTrac. So
Absolutely.
the less
Absolutely.
manual, the better, right?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. But yeah, so very exciting stuff. Again, very easy to use, and, really excited about some of
Mhm.
those things like, the activity log that
Mhm.
we have, and, some of the additional information as well. So yeah.
And you kind of talked about it. I know I'm skipping ahead on our agenda and I'm going to throw you a curveball, but if you
Okay.
go into the assets and findings activity logs, those will show when a workflow has done that task, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't have that
I
example, of
was going to say,
course,
I don't know if we
handy
have an
right here
example
for
to
you,
show.
but yes,
Yeah.
there will be more activity logs, as Tammy
Mhm.
said, coming to all these new features, and then, we'll be backporting that into some of our existing as well. But just, of course, we have our own audit log in the product that tells you, things happening with the
Mhm.
platform. But this kind of really can give you a lot of detail on just that asset itself, or
Yeah.
just a particular finding, or just a particular workflow.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a big fan of the activity log. It does allow you to filter through dates
Mhm.
as well,
And see
or
just
sort
certain
on
kinds of
different
activity.
types.
Yeah. Which
Exactly.
also gives you a good list of what activity you should see on this. I somebody asked me and I was
Exactly.
like, "Look, here's a list." Here's a list of that. But that we had a customer the other day that we were talking to that came into this activity log and you could see where the workflow had done something. It mentioned it in this activity log.
That's
So it's not
perfect.
like that data is also getting pushed into here. So you can see, oh, we did something in the activity log, but you can also come over to that item that it made an edit to and be like, oh, look, it's showing us that it did that in
Exactly. So
this
we want
finding,
to
which
save
is so
you
great.
time, but let you know why as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we don't
Yeah.
want to
Why is
confuse.
this closed? Oh, the workflow did that. Yeah.
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 That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, so definitely you'll see new activity logs popping up throughout the product. Definitely
Yeah.
exciting stuff here.
Which is
And then just really quickly, we kind of talked about it in relation to the workflow automation, but as I mentioned before, we did release webhooks about, November, December. I'm forgetting the exact time frame, and release, but that came out late last year.
Mhm.
And so this really just allows you to send some event-based type notification to Slack, to Teams, or really to any application that accepts a webhook. So you could
Mhm.
create any kind of custom webhook, for any application. This could be like Azure DevOps. Of course, Slack and Teams are the ones that we see our customers using the
Yeah.
most. Just like the workflow automation tool, right? You can set this up for all clients or to be client specific. And as Tammy mentioned, just like we have the variables in the workflow automation, we have variables that you can put in your webhook message as well. So just wanted to kind of call out those webhooks here in addition to the workflow automation engine.
And it's great because those Slack and Teams do not have to be your instances of Slack and Teams. If your customer can set up a webhook receiver in their Slack, you can actually send notifications to their Slack.
Exactly. Great
So
point.
it's a great, like, it's not limited to what you have control over.
Yep.
You have control over what's going out to them. So
Yeah. Yeah. And here's an example. Tammy mentioned, using those variables when we were talking about the workflow engine. And here's just an example of one of those
mhm.
in use here, right? So this one's saying this report was published and it would
Yeah.
bring in the report name. So yeah. So good stuff with the webhooks and as well as the workflow automation, really allowing you to kind of orchestrate your systems together within your ecosystem and make sure, tools are talking to each other.
Yes. And everyone's getting notified about what they need
And
to see.
everyone's getting notified about everything. Exactly. So we also, added custom fields support in as well. And then the ability to, sort and filter from that workflow view as well. So again, the workflow automation, think of it as like a if this, then that, right? With triggers and actions. And we'll continue adding more triggers and continue adding more actions. So good stuff
Yes.
there. Another exciting update here, and this is across the platform. So we have now introduced a PlexTrac service account. So when you go to create a user, you can see a new option to select under authentication provider. So before we had PlexTrac, now you can pick PlexTrac service account. So this is a great type of account, this service account, to use if you're doing scripting in PlexTrac or utilizing our APIs, right? Because
Mhm.
this PlexTrac service account will allow you to have global MFA on, so you can enforce MFA for all of your standard users or for all of your regular PlexTrac users. But then you can create this system or service account that can be used without global MFA or with MFA disabled, so that you can really utilize that for your scripting and APIs. So this gives you more flexibility and, lets you, utilize those scripting and API tools much easier than you were able to before with the
Yeah.
MFA enabled.
Yep, and make sure that you can keep that MFA enforcement without turning it off for those scripting things. So this
Absolutely.
makes everything more secure in PlexTrack.
Exactly. Increasing security for sure. For sure. So I have one more thing to show you, actually two really, because I'll give you a teaser into findings as well, because our asset management and our findings management really do pair together to create our exposure management, lots of management going on here, bundle. So, with our 218 release, if your license is enabled, you will now see assets over in the left-hand navigation panel. If you're not seeing assets in your navigation panel, you can again reach out to your account manager and we can make sure that license is enabled for you. This is part of our core PlexTrac functionality. So we're really excited to start, really showing you information outside of the report. So today, as you guys know in PlexTrac, everything's centered around, and all of the goodness within PlexTrac is really centered around that report, right? So you might bring data into the report, bring more data into it. It might deduplicate within that report. But then when you're really publishing that report up and you're looking at your data across reports, that can be challenging because we're really giving you that report-centric view today. So with asset management, we're trying to, really break out of that report paradigm and really move into that exposure management space to give you a view across your client, outside of that report, or even across your tenancy. So with asset management, we're really going to allow you to start, managing and assessing your attack surface. And so we'll dive into that right now in the product, and I'll show you what asset management looks like. And again, this is really building, the foundation for our finding management, which will be launching soon. It's actually in early access now, so you can have access if you're a cloud hosted customer to our asset and findings management as well, and kind of see how they pair together. So I'll pop over here into the product and show you that. So here you'll see I have my assets module on the left-hand navigation. When you look at this, you'll see we have some light analytics. You can click on some of these things to start filtering in the table below. You can also reset those things as well. But this will give you a nice view into kind of what's going on. You can also look at the assets by type. And as you come down into the table, hopefully you'll notice there's some new items here, like the sorting, but most importantly, the filtering. Yes, so right from this table view, I can start filtering down. Maybe I only want to look at assets for the Department of Communication. Maybe I only want to look at a certain asset type, right? Or maybe I only want to filter by a certain asset criticality, right? I can do that as well by clicking here in the dropdown. So this gives me a lot of flexibility to really configure the rule set that I'm looking at so that I can then take bulk actions or perform bulk actions on that rule set that I'm looking at. So when I'm diving into, we'll just go ahead and dive into one of these assets here. We'll go ahead and let's just pick one with a lot of instances, and I'll describe what an instance is to you as well. So of course, when you're looking at an asset, you can see any of the details. You can edit the asset, add any additional information in. We have the ports separated out here as well that you could look at. Any notes that may have been added by your testing or OffSec team could show here. And then, of course, we have our favorite activity log over here to the right. But one thing that I really want to call out is this instances tab. So an instance is really a pairing of an asset and a finding. So that finding asset unique pairing creates this instance. And what that will allow you to do is actually start taking action on those instances. So maybe based on, the criticality of the asset itself, maybe you want to go ahead and send this off for, prioritized remediation. Or some other action. So this really tells you, okay, when I look at this specific asset, how many findings are on this asset and what is the state of those findings, right? So essentially what I'm saying in this table is that this asset has one vulnerability, this asset has seen 5, and then this asset has seen 25 different findings. So this really gives you that asset first view of all of the findings found on that asset and the current status of them. So the cool thing about this is you can actually flip this on its head. So again, this is that asset view, but then we're also introducing this findings view here. Again, you can come in, and interact with the graphs above. You can come into the table and start performing filtering here at any level that you may want to. And then what you'll notice here is that all of these vulnerabilities or findings, you can see a similar column here called the instance count. And so when I'm looking at the finding, the instance count is showing me how many assets are affected by this finding. So if you remember when we just looked at the finding, I could see instances and I saw how many findings are on this asset. And now that I'm in this finding view, we're just flipping it on its head, right? We'll come down to Active Directory and proper settings just because this has more than one in this example. So I'll go ahead and click on this and you can see that this same finding was found on 3 unique assets, right? This will give you additional information, who it was assigned to, where it came from, and any reports that this finding's been used in as well. You can also come edit this instance, delete it, or take other actions. So we also have our status tracker, just like we did for our report finding layer as well. So you can make comments, and assign these findings out or change their status from here. So again, this will really give you that view of how many times have we seen this finding across a set of assets. And in this view here, the other thing that I want to call out, so you can see in this example, I had 3 instances. When I come over to the status, this is actually a derived or rolled up status from those instances. So in this example, all 3 of those statuses are open, but let's pretend one was in process, one was closed, and one was open. Then this would reflect that, this was still open because one of them was open, and not until all 3 of them were closed, Tammy, would this then
Would that
update to
change?
close.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if there were like 2 in process and 1 closed, it would say in process
In process,
instead
because
of
we want to
open.
tell
Okay.
you the most
Like the least
urgent.
favorable status?
Exactly. I'm
I'm
trying to
like,
think of a
how would
way to
I
say that.
I'm like, how do I
Exactly.
say
The
that?
most urgent,
Awesome.
yes, exactly. But yes,
Okay.
that's exactly the case. So that will really, highlight the
Yeah.
current status so that you don't miss anything. You can also, sort on these instance counts as well, so that you can see what's happened. This would be a good example of,
Where all 53 are closed, so it's showing
exactly,
as closed. So we've done what we're
exactly.
supposed to do.
Exactly. And then the other thing is, as we start updating our API imports up to
Mhm.
this client level, the cool thing that will happen is, if the vulnerability does come in again, and, it has a new asset, it would reopen from closed here.
Okay.
So that you would
Nice.
know that something still needs attention. We wouldn't
Yeah.
want you to think you could ignore it if a new thing came in. So this
Yeah.
status is actually dynamic based on the instances and their status underneath
Okay.
of that.
So
So
if something came in, specifically that finding again, we would
yes,
see that
ex-
open, reopen.
exactly. If that came in, and even if it came in, but from another source,
Okay.
then what would happen is, one of these, in this example, it looks like they're all tenable, but
Mhm.
yes, then it would, it would create a new instance with that new source and then, have a 54th item here
Okay.
and reopen this.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And each
So this,
instance, sorry, each instance is not just the finding asset pairing, but it also we don't see multiple if it's on multiple reports, right? If there's a finding asset pairing and it shows up on multiple reports, it's just going to list those reports out.
yes, you're
Yeah.
exactly
Okay.
correct. So there's a really cool thing that you can also start doing by changing your workflow. But you're exactly right, Tammy. You would see all of the reports that finding asset pair was
Okay.
referenced in here. So we'll have this new reports column when you come into this instance view. And again, each of these instances would be a unique finding asset pair.
Mhm.
So if you did see the same instance title, you would see a different asset name or vice
Mhm.
versa for these.
Yeah,
You
those
can
have two
also
different tool sources, I think. So it's showing us, yeah.
exactly. The
Okay.
other thing is you can also come in at this client level, or again, I've white labeled this to department. And so I could come in to, just this department or client and say, show me all of the findings now rolled up across that whole client. And then this instances view will now show you, everything that that client has seen. And this is where you can start taking action. The other cool thing that you can do from this instance view
At the
is
client
normal.
level.
What was that?
At the client level, right? Only.
Exactly,
Yeah.
at the client level. So I came to the department, into the instances, and I can now select one or many, right? So
Mhm.
we have one client that would, import a monthly report, import, for July, August, September, and then maybe they would do like a quarterly report and
Yeah.
they would try to summarize that. So with this new view, what you could do is you could come into this instance view, pull everything associated with those 3 monthly reports, and then you could say add to a report. And now what you can do is either add those to an existing report or you can create a brand new report. So this gives you that easier way rather than,
Yeah.
reconfiguring everything that you had from each of those monthly reports. You can now just come in here right away, select them all, create that quarterly summary report with their current status so that you don't have to, massage and manipulate, three
Yeah.
different report data. So, today, again, you're coming in, bringing data into the report, and we're pushing it up to this exposure management layer. But we are working on, API updates so that this will, come in right at the client layer, and then you can pull that down into reports if you choose. And that really allows you to start doing some lightweight vulnerability management with inside of PlexTrac, or, really allows you to do that continuous validation or, give a better look into the
Yeah.
exposure management.
See that time-based
Exactly.
process
Exactly.
instead of just for this report, this is what we did. It's more like, oh, look at what all we've accomplished over the last quarter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're evolving from that snapshot in time to really that
Mhm.
data centric view
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's really kind of what I wanted to highlight to you around that, asset first lens. Again, we're also working on this findings first lens. That's our tongue twister. Our findings first lens so that you can really, start seeing things outside of, that point in time report
Yeah.
snapshot. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
I love it. I think even I haven't looked at it in a few weeks, and even those updates made in the most recent update are really great. There are some things
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you can hover over the status? That's new."
Yeah, so
Amazing.
that's the new stuff. Yeah, this
Yeah.
has some great UI enhancements, and obviously, this sorting and filtering is great, and this is something that we also want to, bring down to that report module as
Yeah,
well.
I'm excited to see all those updates as we get those filtering things added. That's been a long time request from a lot of customers. I know
Yeah,
more filtering, more visibility in our data, more ability to manipulate it and move it around, not manipulate it in the bad way, but like move it around and do what we
right.
need to do.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Make it work
that's
for
great.
you. Yeah. So that's really what I had for you, Tammy. And so if
Awesome.
there are any questions,
Yeah.
we can take those. Or of course, if any come in later. I always think of my questions after I hang up. So
That me too. I very seldom ever think of them as I am on it, and then I'm like, "Man, I should have asked that."
I
But
know.
as always, if you don't have a question today, you are always welcome to reach out and talk to your account manager and say, "Hey, I thought of this question after the fact." If they can't answer it, they'll talk to me and we'll find an answer. So,
Exactly.
that is definitely something we're always willing to help everyone out with. So if you do have any questions, we'll leave it open for just a little bit to see if one comes through because I know it can take a minute to type it out. but we are more than happy to answer that. Next week, as I said earlier, we're going to do a custom roles webinar. So we'll be deep diving into custom roles. We have some really fun use cases that we have for role-based access control, and looking at how you can utilize custom roles to give everyone the access that they need and nothing extra, or possibly give them more than what our built-in roles do, because our built-in roles meet a certain specific need, but that's why we have custom roles. So if you need more or less than what we offer in built-in roles, we can go there. I am not seeing any questions come through, so we will go ahead and say thank you for attending. We really appreciate everyone that
Yeah.
makes it to the webinars, and those of you watching this recording after, we appreciate you coming back to watch it. And hopefully you found some helpful new information today. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or your account manager, and we can get those answered for you. And we will talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much.